Welcome to part 2 of Trauma Therapy Innovations. Flash technique. Now, Phil Manfield, who developed the flash technique, has figured out that his half-day workshop isn't adequate and he needs the full-day workshop. And I just teach it in an hour and a half, and I'm thinking, what else is there to it? It's not that complicated. But Phil probably knows more than I do about it. So I recommend his workshop as well. He's also got some great videos. But you're here with me, so let's go. We'll start with theory, and we'll get into practice. Memory reconsolidation, the neuropsychological term for describing the process that trauma healing requires retrieval and activation of the memory and then repeated introduction of corrective information. That's how the memory gets transformed from a wound into something that's in the past that we've grown from. This retrieval and activation can happen very quickly on the subliminal or barely conscious level, eliminating the experience of distress that we would normally expect when we activate an upsetting memory. And you know, there's a lot of research on subliminal or barely conscious experiences. For example, if you're at the movies and they're having a love scene and then enjoy Coca-Cola flashes so quickly that you don't know you saw it, more people are going to buy Coca-Cola during intermission than if that hadn't flashed there, which is why that's illegal. It works. It turns out that it might work in trauma treatment as well. So imagine if the client could engage with the memory and introduce corrective information without noticing. Here's the method. We guide our client to concentrate on a safe place image, a pleasant memory, some other feel-good memory or image during slow eye movements. Normally, the normal speed is 1 round trip per second, and this is about half speed. So 1 each direction per second. Then the therapist says, flash, and the client blinks while not thinking about the upsetting memory that you've already decided to target. And then the client continues. In other words, what you're saying to the client is, okay, here's the memory we're going to target. Don't think about it. I want you to concentrate on this feel-good image. Flash, just blink. Keep on concentrating on the feel-good image. Okay. So the flash represents the targeted memory. At the same time, we're instructing our client not to actually open that memory up. And after a few times through, as long as it's going okay, we have clients do triple flashes, triple blinks, rather than single ones. Every so often, we check on the SUDS on the distress level. And you keep on doing this until you hit the floor. In other words, if the SUDS is going down, 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 steady, 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 it's not going down anymore, you've hit the floor. Whether that floor is at 0 or 6 doesn't matter. You take flash as far as it can go. When you hit the floor, it's done what it can do, then you move on to standard trauma processing for whatever's left. By the way, I would move on to standard trauma processing for whatever's left, even if you got a 0 on flash. Because sometimes there's more there that flash didn't find. What if you have a client who closes their eyes? They can't do eye movements. You can still have them You can use sounds or taps or clients slapping their own knees for the bilateral stimulation. And they can still blink their eyes even if their eyes are already closed. It's just a little squeeze, right? What do we say to a client about this? And we don't usually have to say much, but if the client is actually opening up the memory when we don't want them to, we can kind of coach them a little more about how to avoid that. So we might say something like, it's like flicking your finger through a flame so fast that not only you don't get burned, but you don't even feel the warmth. So when you blink, it can be like that. Now, normally you don't even say any of this to your clients because they followed the initial instructions and it worked great. But if they report that they're getting sucked into the memory a little during that blink, you can coach them on how to avoid that. Or like touching a book but not opening it. So those are a couple of the really reliable metaphors for those clients who need a little extra training on how to do this well. Okay. So, want to try it? Of course you do. Now, you don't have to, you know that, right? But in case you want to try it, we're going to start with what I call a test run on some minor thing, just so you can get a taste of it without getting into anything big. So we're looking for a discrete memory that's not part of a cluster of related memories. It's just a single incident kind of thing. It's generally best to avoid anything a family member did to you. Because even if that was the only time they did that thing, it's going to be thematically related to other interactions, so it's actually part of a cluster. Also, if you've had a lot of personal losses in your life, and last year your goldfish died, you can't use that. Because when you open that door to where the goldfish died, the other losses are going to be in that room too. So for this test run, we like to keep it really safe and discreet. You're probably asking yourself, okay, what's left? Sometimes people choose car accidents, or seeing somebody get injured somehow, or some other kind of accident. But the thing is, I also want you to choose a low suds thing for the test run. So don't choose a car accident that's 8 or 9 or 10, but if it's a 2 or 3, that's fine. Or choose an upsetting scene from a movie. Something that when you think of it, you still get a bit of a ideally in the 2 to 5 range on suds. So hopefully you have something in mind, some sort of safe, discrete event that's not too heavy. Where are you now on 0 to 10 with that movie scene or memory? Write that number down, because we're going to check on it later. Now we're going to need your feel-good image. It could be a safe place image you've used. It could be a memory that comes to mind that you just feel good when you remember maybe your last trip to someplace warm, or something you enjoy doing that you do now and then, whether that's art or dancing or gardening or splitting wood or whatever it is that, you know, sitting by the fire, whatever it is that when it comes to mind, you just feel good. Being with a certain person, playing with a grandchild, whatever it is. So you have something in mind. Now, the thing you have in mind, it can't just be the concept of it. It's going to be a certain moment in time that when you picture it, you're really there. Yeah? Okay. So, I'm going to wave my hand back and forth like this. No, that's not going to work. In a room this size, I think the way to do it is have you self-administer the bilateral stimulation. And you can either use the butterfly hug. Oh, I'll show you how to do that. Face your palms towards your face. And as you move them across past each other, hook thumbs. Now put that thumb on the center of your collarbone. So that's one way to do it, and then alternating taps. Or another way is just tap on your own thighs, alternating taps on your own thighs. Either way is fine. Do it slowly, and I'm going to talk you through it. Ready? Concentrate on the feel-good image. Do the bilateral stimulation slowly. Butterfly hug or knee taps. Flash. And continue concentrating on your feel-good image. Okay, stop right there. I forgot to mention that when I say flash, you're going to blink. Whether your eyes are opened or closed, you're still going to, even if they're closed, you're going to do kind of a squeeze blink. Do not go to the upsetting memory you chose. Just do the blink and then continue with your feel-good image. Let's try it again. Ready? Concentrate on the positive image. Do your bilateral stimulation. Flash. Keep going with the feel-good image. Okay, you can stop there. So let me tell you what's coming up. I'm going to talk you through it, but I'm not going to stop you. So you're just going to keep on concentrating on your feel-good image. And every once in a while I'm going to say flash, you're going to blink. You're not going to go to the upsetting memory. You're just going to blink and then keep on going with your feel-good image. Until I say triple flash, at which point you're going to do with your eyes. Triple blink. But otherwise the same instructions. Ready? Concentrate on your feel-good image. Do your bilateral stimulation. Flash. 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 Triple flash. Triple flash. Triple flash. Okay. So you can stop now. Now check out that memory that I told you not to think about. Where is it now on the 0 to 10 scale? How bad is the feeling right now? Write that number down next to the number you wrote down before. So we just did about a minute or two of the flash, right? I asked you to do a SUDS rating pre and post. If the second time you wrote that SUDS rating down, the number was higher than the first time, if it's worse now, raise your hand. Look around, a couple of hands, it can happen. If your number is the same as the first number you wrote down, raise your hand. Good. If the number is lower than the first time, raise your hand. Most. Okay. So there's your first taste of the flash technique. So when you do this with a client on an actually upsetting memory, and they can take the edge off without having to get upset, it gives you a lot more chance to actually work on that memory, doesn't it? So, don't do it yet, but in a minute, you're going to be practicing with each other. By the way, if you get a partner and your partner says, actually, I don't want to do this practice, that's okay, but then get another partner if you do want to do it, right? Nobody has to do this, but make sure that you, if you want to do it, make sure you find somebody else that wants to do it. Okay, so for this one, now that you've done your test run, it's okay to try it with a more upsetting memory if you want to, or another small one, whatever comes to mind that you feel like working on. Flash works better when there's not a feeder memory underneath it, right? When it's sort of freestanding and not also in part an overreaction because it's hitting an existing wound. So if the memory that came to mind that you want to work on is a discrete memory, that's fine. If it's part of a cluster, then the flash target would be the first instance of that cluster so that there's nothing underneath it. So if you have a memory in mind that you're willing to work on today, just check that memory out for a moment. How bad is it now on 0 to 10? Write that number down. And you're going to be practicing flash with a partner, so I'll give you a few minutes to go one way, and then I'll call the switch, and then you take a few minutes to go another way. You should have a script, right? Okay. Now, oh, I forgot to mention this before. I brought some hard copy handouts. So if anybody wants those, either from the first part of the workshop or the second, I have some and I'll walk around, bearing in mind that your flash handout that I have hard copy of is an old version and I've changed everything around. But the script, I think, is still good. So if you just want a hard copy of the script in your hand, that part of the handout is good. So you're going to use the script, and you're also going to check in on the suds every once in a while. Because if the suds is still going down, you're going to keep going, but if it's hit the floor, if it's not making any further progress, then you don't have to keep going. Also, you kind of want to check in with your client now and then. How's that going? How's it going for you? Because if they're telling you they're getting sucked in by the memory that they're trying to avoid, then you can talk to them about flicking their finger through the candle or touching the book but not opening it to further coach them in actually not opening up that memory. Okay? I see a hand there. Yeah? Were you just asking for a handout or you had a question? The script? No. I can't. It doesn't work that way. It's too many words. It wouldn't really be readable. But I'll give you a copy of it if you want. Okay. Yes?
Are we using, bilateral there?
Oh, so when you're practicing with your partner, you can be using the very slow eye movements, or you can ask your clients to tap their own knees. Either is fine. Other questions before we start on the practice? Yes?
About the suds that you're measuring, when you're bringing up the memory, let's say it's a suds of 6,
Yep.
but then when you're in the pleasant thing, I guess would be the suds is going to be 0. And so as you start to do the work, you're going to be starting out at 0. Right?
Okay, so the question is, how does it make sense to track the suds? Because we're not doing it. Oh, I see what you mean. No, so when you're checking in during flash, so you've done a few rounds of flashing, and then you're not asking your client how bad was it that last time through.
Oh, you say if you bring it up.
If you bring the memory to mind now, where are you now on 0 to 10?
Yeah.
Right, because obviously during that time through, hopefully it was a 0.
Right. Okay.
So you're checking about the result of that by saying bring the memory to mind now. Any more questions before we start the practice? Okay, so I will wander around with hard copies of the script. Oh, sorry, I don't see a hand, but if that was you, tell me what your question is.
I just want to make sure that the BLS is continuous. It doesn't stop at the beginning. The bilateral stimulation doesn't stop.
Right, unless you want to stop and check in and see how they're doing, which you would do every few times.
But when you say flash, you're still. I'm just.
Yeah, you can keep going. You can keep going. And it just kind of like I did with you. Well, the first time or two, you probably want to check in and make sure they're doing it right and getting the experience. Once you feel like they've got it, you don't have to stop, you just say flash every so often. And after a few times through, you'll stop and you'll check in, how's it going, and if you bring the memory to mind now, where is it now on 0 to 10?
But the BLS continues while they're flashing.
The BLS continues through the series of flashes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, another question?
You did 3 sets of triple flashes.
I did 3 sets of triple flashes with you, but you're going to do as many with your client until you hit the floor and the SUDS isn't going down any further. So you're going to check in every so often to see what's going on. Yeah. That's the thing about a group is you can't respond individually to what's going on with your client. All right. So find a partner. Oh, there's another hand, which I also can't see, but speak up. What? Oh, okay. So find a partner. I will walk around with spare scripts and, oh, what? Okay. And you'll have about 6 minutes each way.
You have to pause the recording. Okay.
Okay, good.
I ran out of handouts, I put the script up here. I don't know if you can read it or not. Might be too small.
That's the bulk of it.
What?
That's the bulk of it. So.
Thought I had more, but time out. I know there's no good time to talk when everybody's in the middle of it because you're all in different places. But I want to share with you some of the questions that came up because it's a big group, so I probably haven't given as much supervision as everybody needs. First of all, I want to check, have you finished in one direction or do you need a little more time? If you finished in one direction, raise your hand. Need a little more time in that first round, raise your hand. Okay, somebody. So, after you say, so how long do you do everything for? That's one of the questions that came up. What I modeled in a group isn't good because it's really all about being attuned to your client. So, of course, you can't attune to a group. So, when you're working with just your own client, you start on the feel-good image. How long do you do this for? As long as you need to make sure they're really into it. Typically 2, 3, 4 seconds, but it could be a little longer for some clients just to make sure they're there. Then after the flash, the same thing. You keep going until you're confident that they're really tuned into that feel-good image. So typically for another, 3 or 4 seconds anyway. Let's see what else came up. What if your client's at sets of 3? Do you keep going or do you stop? I don't know. It depends on, I would keep going a few times and see if it gets lower. If it gets lower, you keep going some more. If it gets lower, you keep going some more. But at a point where it's not getting lower anymore, and you do it a few times and it's staying the same, you've hit your floor and then it's okay to stop. Whether that's at a 3 or a 5 or a 0 or whatever it is. So I have a question over there.
Yeah, I was wondering what happens if there's a subsurge.
So if you do this and you check in, now and then the suds might get higher instead of lower. It doesn't happen too much, but it can happen. So I would just keep going. On the other hand, I would also check in, and if it's getting higher because my client is kind of opening up the memory during that flash, right? They're holding their finger long enough that the candle's making their finger hot. Then I would use one of those metaphors to coach them to go really quickly. No, flick your finger through the flame so fast that you don't even feel the warmth. It's like touching a book without opening it. So now and then you might find that your client needs further training on how to flash without getting into the memory. Okay? Yeah?
Are you doing this like in the beginning of a session or to help, like if you're in a memory?
Yeah, okay. So the question is, when would you do it in the course of therapy? And I want to save that question for later so don't forget it. I saw another question here.
I could imagine that I would have found it easier to stay with a positive memory if I had talked about it for 2 minutes or something. Do you want to do that?
Have the client talk about the positive memory first.
Yeah, verbalize the positive memory.
No, I've never done that, and that doesn't mean that your therapist shouldn't do it with you. So the way standardized procedures work is you do them the right way. And if they work, that's great. And if they don't work for a particular client, you modify them to make them work with that client. And so your therapist should modify it, but usually it doesn't, you don't have to do that, yeah.
Does a person's own connecting get in the way of,
If the person's on one.
like after just blink their eyes and eyes 1 to 2? Does that change the flash? You know what I mean? You say flash and then the person just kind of has to blink anyway. Also?
Blinking other than for the flash doesn't seem to matter.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, continue with your practice. I just wanted to, I couldn't supervise the whole room at once, so I wanted to share some of the things that came up. If you're already through one way, switch and go the other way. If you're not quite through that one way yet, then, give yourself the time you need, and then switch when you're ready. The script is up here in case you need it. I know the type is small, but that's what it is. Go ahead. If you're all set on the second time through, raise your hand. If you're all done. If you need a little more time, raise your hand. And if you didn't raise your hand, raise your hand. We're good. All right, give me another minute or two.
I just wanted to ask Ricky if you could, is it possible for you to send that to us? Or
It's on the
we never,
history.
oh, it is? Oh, I thought it wasn't. Oh, okay.
So
My-
just
my
go
computer
online and
did
it's
not-
on
Okay, it's on there
It's
already.
the last page.
Okay, great. I can check. I'm just wondering what it will be like tomorrow morning.
All right. Thank you, partner. And that memory that you tried not to think about during the flash experience, check on that memory right now. How bad is it right now on the 0 to 10 scale? Write that number down next to the number you wrote down before. So we did a pre-post on this memory now. If the post measurement SUDS is higher than the pre, it gets worse now, raise your hand. If it's the same, raise your hand. If it's lower, raise your hand. Okay. Any comments on your experience as a client? What struck you? How did it go? And speak loudly because it's a big room. Go ahead.
It sure is hard to find a memory that's not tied to other threads.
It's hard to find a discrete memory that's not connected to other
I
things.
thought mine was resolved, in the real world it is. So I went back and I did that, and it's tied to other stuff, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, we often ask our clients to pick a discrete memory, but there's no such thing as a discrete memory. Okay. Other comments on your experience, yeah?
So there's a tendency for me to think that this could be,
Stand up and talk loud.
that this could just be sort of the power of positive thinking. That
Okay.
I have an expectation that this.
Right, and so just like clients with EMDR who get better and say, but it's not real though, I'm just avoiding now or whatever. So you're saying to yourself, this is just positive thinking, nothing really happened.
Well, it's a question that I have.
It's a question. Okay.
Like it happened, but I'm wondering why.
Okay, you're wondering why. Okay. Other comments on your experience, yeah?
I felt like with both times, I felt like it was like a Novocaine. Like it felt like I was getting, like the memory was numb enough for me to maybe be able to work on it, you know. But that if I go back into the real world and something else had happened, it could trigger it right back to that substance. But it really sort of felt like there was this sort of like, kind of like covering over it or something that just sort of, you know, made it kind of numb for that.
Okay. So it doesn't feel finished the way a memory with EMDR
Right.
would for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it didn't feel
So the SUDS got lower,
correct.
but it didn't feel cleaned out the way, okay.
I felt like without the negative cognition, it wasn't as powerful. So I somehow felt that if I had the negative
So it felt less because the negative cognition wasn't involved. Okay.
Actually, we both had a similar experience in going back to check the SUDS, finding as it went down that they're actually sort of like positive interweaves or corrective things that automatically just seem to be falling into it.
Okay, this is why I like working in groups, because you get a sneak preview on the range of possible responses your clients will have. Where here, there were a couple of people who actually did experience the cognitive changes and transformations that you would get in EMDR, whereas in a couple of other places, they specifically didn't experience that. So we got a range of experiences. Well, yeah.
I had this experience of when it was time for a triple flash. I kept blinking. I couldn't stop my eyes from blinking. It took me a while. So I'm wondering how, what is there an orthodoxy about the 1.3?
Okay, so it was hard to stop blinking, but triple flash became quadruple, etc. Okay. Wow, I would just unplug and reboot. But I don't know if you can do that with your clients. So, okay. Yeah, we don't know a ton about the flash yet, and so I'm kind of following Phil Manfield's lead here, where he says this is how to do it, and I do it that way and it works, and so I'm kind of like, okay, that's how I'll do it. And so there are a lot of questions about, well, what if we changed this and changed that? And flash is so new that we don't really know the answers to those things yet. Yeah, I saw another hand here, yeah.
An incidental thing I didn't expect was that, what I guess I should be surprised by, is that it made the positive memory much more vivid. It actually brought back details of it that happened then when I started. And I suppose that's not a surprise if I've got BLS going.
Okay, so BLS was the positive memory, slow BLS, and the memory became more vivid and added detail, or recalled additional details.
I was surprised, since we were told not to think about the traumatic memory, how difficult it was to stay with a positive experience. Like, complex is pretty easy for me to go to, but then this one was a little harder to pick up and noticing the details and how much body feeling I got. But then that worked out, and then I had more of the expanding of the positive.
So you're saying it was hard not to go to the bad place, or it was hard to stay in a good place, or?
It wasn't hard not to go to the bad place. I wasn't directly thinking about it, but I could feel in my body lots of stuff going on, even though I was really focused on the positive place. And that was surprised, because that's different from just doing a calm place.
Okay, so this wasn't as simple and easy as just doing a normal concentrate on your calm place.
Right.
Because there was this competing thing going on, even though you were avoiding it, it was still going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to observe that, oh, there's this stuff happening.
Right, okay. Yeah, you.
In terms of negative cognition, my trauma was all about negative cognition. It was, something was traumatic because of how all the things that I said to myself, I'm a screw up, I'm incompetent, I did it wrong. And my psych